Hey everyone, welcome back to bageltcg. Today we're going to be doing a deck tech as well as Pro Tour review of the last weekend and talk about my experience there, my results, what I would change with the Bravo deck I brought, and kind of just overall thoughts on Pro Tour Baltimore. Um, First of all, I want to say thank you to anyone who came up and said hi at the Pro Tour. There was a lot of you. You were all really nice, and I hope you enjoyed the token you got, the little bagel token. Um, Also, I'm going to, now that I'm back, be sending out the Good Deeds Don't Go Unnoticed promo, whatever that is, to all my patrons. Thank you, patrons, for your support. And then I'll be thinking of a giveaway for the channel as well for that. But thank you, patrons, as always, for all of your support. Um, for Baltimore, it was probably the best run event they have ever done. It was really good. They ran it great. I don't like. I'm not in love with the city of Baltimore, but the event hall was nice, and the event itself was ran really well. So, whoever was running this event, hats off to you. You did a great job. I really enjoyed this event, and it's probably one of my favorites I've been to. Obviously, doing pretty well at the event doesn't hurt, but yeah, I really liked this event. Looking at my record, so I had a pretty great day one. You can kind of see from the little notepad thing I've got up here. I went 6-1 on day one. I only dropped a single game in limited, and I was feeling pretty good. Day one results, you shouldn't let taint your day two mindset too much, other than being positive into it. But usually, it is harder day two, right? There's a reason it's day two. People that aren't as good get kind of weeded out. So you're definitely going to have an easier time day one if you're one of the people who should be making day two, right? So day one, I was on this Bravo list here that I'll have linked in the description. I went 4-0 in CC on the first day. I beat a Katsu, an Azalea, an Oldham, and a Dromai. My team brought this deck because we thought it was good into basically everything in the top tables that wasn't Lexi. And Lexi was maybe just slightly unfavored, but we definitely had a chance. But it felt pretty favored into Oldham and into Dromai, which were like the second and third most played decks. And then it felt pretty decent into Katsu, which ended up being the fifth most played deck. And then the first most played was Lexi, which is not the easiest matchup, but certainly not unwinnable. It was about 40% win rate, maybe. And then the mirror, which is, obviously just a 50-50 chance because it's the same deck. So we felt like we had a decent matchup spread overall. And you can see in day one, I played an Oldham and a Dromai, and I beat both of those. I also played a Katsu, and I beat that. So all of the decks I said we were pretty favored into. We're also pretty favored into Azalea. I think she was like the sixth or seventh most played deck, and I won that game. So I got pretty lucky pairings day one. I didn't play any Lexis, even though she was 20% of the field, and I should have statistically played one. And so I was pretty happy with my matchups. In draft, I played Benji. I was the only Benji in my pool, which is good. You definitely don't want to have two Benjis. I was actually getting passed to by a ninja. It was Andrew Rothermel, I think, who ended up top 8ing the Pro Tour. So I think he 3-0'd that pod. He did pretty good. He was on Ninja as well. He was on Katsu. And so he had a pretty good deck because the other ninja in the pod was me, and I had to get all the way around to him. So he was in a pretty good spot. But Katsu, the only overlap Katsu and Benji have is really on the big red attacks. So I was a little light on the red power. The more powerful cards I was a little light on. But I had all the deadly duos. I had 4 yellow deadly duos and a blue deadly duo. My deck was quite strong, just missing a little bit of the power. So it was a solid 2-1 deck. I mean, you can't really ever be mad about going 2-1 in a draft. That's only one person 3-0s. So being one of the like 2 or 3-2-1s or whatever there is, I'm pretty happy with that. So overall, I had a great day one. Probably almost best possible results, right? Almost didn't drop a game. So pretty happy with day one. And then in day two, it starts out with draft again. I was in a pod with Brody, Stackswell, and Pat Eschke. So it was a pretty stacked pod. Obviously, we were all doing pretty well. To my right, it was Stackswell passing to me, and Brody was passing to him. And Brody obviously top 8'd the Pro Tour as well. And then I was sitting directly across from Pat Eschke, who was the recent Battle Hardened winner. So pretty stacked pod. And I think I played it pretty well. I was the only ranger in the whole pod. The only reason I went Riptide over Azalea is there wasn't a ton of buffs. I had a bunch of red arrows, but the buffs were getting taken by a lot of other people in the pod, just taking Scout the Peripheries because it was the best common. And there wasn't, just didn't end up being a ton of ranger buffs. I also got pretty early on the best trap, the legendary trap for Riptide. It was like one of my first few picks in the whole draft. The one that decreases power back down to its base. And that's kind of like a free win versus Azalea and some of the other decks. So I felt like Riptide was pretty strong. I probably should have 3-0'd this pod since I was the only ranger. I think I maybe played a little poorly into the Benji round one. And also, Benji, sometimes you can just take losses from because they kill you so quickly, and I didn't have the ways to block it. I do think there was a world I could have won round one, so I don't love that loss, but won the other two games, and overall was pretty happy with that draft. Still can't be mad about a 2-1. And at this point, I was 8-2, so I was still in contention for top 8. If I win my next 3 games in a row, I top 8 the Pro Tour, right? Which is a lot of pressure. If I win the next 3 games, I can even drop the last round, I think, and I'll top 8. So I was like, I just need to win 3 games of CC. Unfortunately, I get my first pairing, and it's probably Bravo's worst matchup, or one of them, which is Azuri. Azuri has a ton of disruption that basically hits Bravo. Bravo arsenals a lot of his power cards, like Crippling Crush, Spinal Crush, and Azuri has a ton of arsenal disruption with Leave No Witness and CNC. He also has, she also has Shakedown and Surgical Extraction, which are both good on hits for taking cards from hand. So it was rough. I don't think it ended up being on the stream. We were the backup stream, which added some extra pressure. I got the Azuri down to 1, and had a small chance to win if he had not blocked properly around a Pummel. But he was a great player. He was very good. I think it was Francesco, and he played it great and ended up taking that game. So I was already a little frustrated because now I have to win the next 3, and I might still not top 8 at that position. So was a little worried there. It was my worst matchup. It was the first bad matchup I really played of CC. But then I pair into actually the Azuri's teammate, a Bravo. And I don't think I played my best in that game. It was a pretty close game in the mirror match. I think maybe his deck was a little better prepared for it. I think he had a lot more reps in it. Honestly, I didn't practice the mirror very much. I didn't expect to see a lot of other Bravos. And so I ended up taking that loss. I'm pretty sure I can't top 8 at this point, but I can still hopefully top 16 or top 32 from this position. But unfortunately played my first Lexi, took the loss there to Cody Williams. Once again, I'm not super happy with how I played this game. I think I was maybe a little on tilt slowly as I tilted more after each of these games. They all felt really close, and I just couldn't close them out. I didn't play great here. Also, Lexi is just Lexi and is incredibly powerful. But luckily, I was going to be pretty upset if I didn't top 64 at this point because I had started so strong. But luckily, I was able to play an Oldham, which is once again a good matchup for us, and take the win that way, which ended up putting me in the top 64. I got 49th with a 9-5 record, so I still got that $1,000 for getting top 64. So still made money on the weekend. I also opened a single box of Outsiders and pulled a cold foil Plague Hive, so I made money that way too. So still had a great weekend. I mean, honestly, even if I didn't plus financially, it was still super fun. And so, yeah, great weekend overall. Very happy with it. And yeah, let's look at the deck tech now, though. So I played Bravo at the event. I have played Bravo, I guess, at all of the Pro Tours now I've been to, because the only other Pro Tour I went to was New Jersey, where I played Bravo Star of the Show, who is not legal anymore. But I guess I just have to bring Bravo to all my Pro Tours now. I also top 64 that event on Bravo. I got 40th. So me and Bravo just work out at events. I don't think this was the best deck to be on. I think Lexi is probably the best deck in the room. I probably should have just been on her, but I can't really complain because I got decent results with Bravo. Ended up, I guess, 5-3 in CC. And looking at my matchup spread, it could have been worse than that. I mean, I played a Dromai and an Azalea day one. And I could have lost both of those if I was on Lexi. So I'm happy overall with how this deck played. Um, this is the exact list I played. I will talk a bit about the changes I would have made um, if I'm going to play this deck further. You also, if you want to subscribe to my Patreon, support me there. I have all my Patreon deck lists that are regularly updated. So I've already updated the Bravo Patreon deck list that shows what changes I would have made. But looking at the deck here, the equipment suite, you don't really want to change at all. Basically, playing as few equipment as we can. We're only on AB1 here. We didn't really. Oh, my team was also all on Bravo. So when I'm saying we, it was me and then 4 other teammates all brought Bravo to the Pro Tour. But um, we didn't really expect to see a lot of Wizard. Icelander gets hated out pretty hard by the Rangers, and Kano just isn't a very popular hero ever. So we just went to AB1. I think I only played it once on the weekends into Dromai as just kind of a hedge into the Burn Them All. So I barely even touched the Null Rune boots. And they're not that important. You need them obviously for like Viserai, Dromai, and the Wizards. But Bravo has a pretty bad matchup into Kano, and not even a great matchup into Icelander. And it's not really solved at all by having AB3. The Icelander matchup does get a good bit better with the AB3, but we would rather have those slots on other things. So we just decided to kind of take our losses if we pair into Wizard. I didn't pair into any Wizards, so it worked out there. And hope that we have tech for other stuff, right? So that's kind of the reason behind that. Vambrace makes the Oldham matchup pretty favored for us, so you have to play the Vambrace. I won both of my matchups because of it. Your game plan is really frustrating for the Oldham to play into. Your goal is to pitch one of your blues and attack for 4 with your Anathos with an open arsenal, right? And so if they decide to only block for 3, you can pitch to Vambrace because it's an attack reaction, one of your reds, and it'll be coming for 6, right? So you get to deal 3 damage to them, which is great. If you pitch for it and they block 6 on it, right? They put 2 cards because they're worried about you doing that. You can actually choose to arsenal the other card instead. You can even do it with the blue. Some of the blues are great to arsenal. Rouse, Terra Sunder, even Macho Grande, and the bigger attacks are fine arsenals. So you have this great play pattern of threaten Anathos. They have to either block 6 or take 3 damage. And when they block 6, you basically took an extra card from them for free, and you get an arsenal your red. So their play pattern is basically only Sledge, so you can just block for 6 on their Sledge every time. And your play pattern is like attack with Anathos for 4, they block 6, and the next turn you get a swing Crippling Crush, or you get a swing Spinal Crush, or you get to go Rouse. So you get like a Anathos turn, damage turn, Anathos turn, damage turn, and it's pretty strong way. And if they are just going forever on the block 6 plan, you're going to eventually deck them that way. So that is the reason for Vambrace. And then you play this equipment suite into everything else. That is kind of an overview of the equipment suite here. Looking at the main deck, these 57 cards are definitely the main cards in the deck. Some of them do come out sometimes. They're not like always in. I think I basically always keep the 39 blues in, so the blues don't really change at all. We ended up with mostly the standard blues for Bravo. The kind of cute cards are 2 blue Unmovable. We tried 3 for a while, but you ended up drawing them together too often when that's pretty awkward because you really would like one of them to at least block normally. So we just went down to 2. We were also on 3 Stamp Authority, but once again, that's kind of clunky. It doesn't really attack, and it's only good really on turn 0. But we liked them as a way to. It was a pretty good hedge into Lexi. If they make you go first, you can play Stamp Authority or search it with Imposing Visage, and that's a pretty solid turn 0 into Alexi. So that was kind of the main reason we ran Stamp Authority. And then 2 Crush Confidence blues. I cut 1 Stamp Authority and 1 Unmovable for these because I just needed some more cards that were having a good on hit, blocked 3 always on like Unmovable, and revealed for like Rouse and stuff like that. So went with the Crush Confidences here. This is probably our best on hit or on crush effect into Lexi. If you hit them and they have a face down card in Arsenal, And if it doesn't have go again, they can't flip it, and they just kind of lose their whole turn. Obviously, they're not usually just going to take this whole card, but paired with Pummel, it's pretty strong. So usually you're not just throwing it at the Lexi. That's way too weak. If you have a Pummel in Arsenal, though, it's pretty solid, and that's kind of the game plan with Crush Confidence there. I would probably rather this be something else. If you have a different blue you'd rather play here, I think you should go ahead with it. The Crush Confidence felt pretty medium. It's not 6 power, so it doesn't pop or anything. So this card's pretty flexible. If you wanted to make these different blues, you could. I think I would keep the other blues in the deck the same. For the reds, you don't need a lot of explanation for a lot of these. Crippling Crush is your best card, basically. Spinal Crush is your second best card. Pummel helps you get all your crush effects through. I mean, it's +4, so if they block a card perfectly, you can still crush. So very good card there. Sink Below is the best D-React, and you just need a little bit of defensive power in the deck. Command and Conquer is not great synergy-wise with Bravo, because it doesn't cost 3. You would literally rather this card just cost more for the same rate in Bravo. If this costs 3, I'd be happier. But it's very good into Lexi, right? So it's kind of the main reason to play it. Ranger's popular right now. You can go Command and Conquer Pummel, and they lose all Arsenal cards. So that's pretty good. Chokeslam Red is only okay into Lexi. It's solid if they're trying to go Rain Razors. That's pretty lucky for you if you can Chokeslam on a Rain Razors turn. But it's very good into decks like Azalea. If they're pumping a lot, it's a problem. But the Rangers in general do like to pump. Even Lexi plays some Art of War, some Premeditate. So Chokeslam's a pretty solid card. And any of the 4 for 8s are pretty solid because off of a Seismic Surge, they're 2-card 8s, which is already a pretty solid rate. So that's kind of the main deck here. And then looking at the sideboard, so I'm playing the Red Crush Confidence in the sideboard here. This is probably one of the first cards I would change. These were for Lexi for the same reason. You can get this in on Lexi. They have to give you 2 cards for it. But okay, I will say maybe I'm low on it because I didn't play it often. I only played 1 Lexi, and the game I played into Lexi, I drew a hand with 1 blue, a Pummel, and 2 Red Crush Confidence. So it felt pretty bad there. Maybe my sample size is too small, and I didn't like that in the game because I just drew poorly. 2 Red Crush Confidence, a red Pummel, and a blue is pretty awful. But still, 7 is a little low. And Lexi nowadays has a lot of cards they arsenal that have go again. So it turns out that turning off her hero ability doesn't always do something, right? So like they know what their card in arsenal is. If they think it's a Falcon Wing, I'm totally fine to lose hero ability this turn. They can just take the 7, and then you kind of didn't do much more than like a slightly better Anathos. So I didn't really love this card. I would probably cut these 3 Crush Confidence. I liked basically all the other sideboard cards. The Blessings are great into the Oldhim matchup. They let you have a pretty strong 2-card hand for Anathos. Pitch a blue, play Blessing, draw another blue, make a Surge, and attack with Anathos for 6. That's like 9 to 10 value off of 2 cards. Very strong there. The 1 Fate Foreseen, it's nice to have like 1 of the reacts. So if opponent is counting your graveyard, they see 1 Fate Foreseen and they're probably expecting more. 2 red Unmovable here. This is for anything that goes tall, like basically other Guardians and Azalea. 3, once again, ended up being awkward when I was testing it, so I had cut 1 for this Fate Foreseen. You would just too often draw them together, and then they were pretty bad. So I liked the Fate Foreseen instead. Of the 3rd one, the Fate Foreseen you can also play into way more matchups. So most matchups look like I put like for aggro, it's like the Fate Foreseen, and then I pick 2 of the other cards. Often it's like these Pulverize. The Pulverize go into a lot of matchups because it's our like 4th or 5th best attack. It costs way too much, so we almost never resolve it. But it is a 3 block, which is pretty good, and it's a decent turn 0 play, making a Surge and heaving this. Then you have a pretty strong 3-card hand. Attacking for 14 with 2 blues is quite good. So it's a decent turn 0 play. It's a huge number if you can get it off. If your opponent really low rolls, it's pretty strong. Off a Surge, you can still make it a 4-card hand, which is still quite good. So it's a fine card, but usually it's a 3-block, and we're just putting these 3 cards in against most aggro because they're just extra blocking power. The Smashing Good Times are just for dash, basically. That's it. I think I put them in against Kano too because they play items and you can force them to use it, but that's basically it. Zealous Belting is in for a lot of stuff. It's great when we're ever the aggressor. So Dromai, Icelander, Kano, even the Guardian Mirror, they're pretty strong. It's just a great card. It's a very good rate, pitching 2 blues. And instead of just going Anathos for 6, you can throw in an extra 5 with those 2 blues. It's pretty strong. It turns your 2-card 6 into a 3-card 11. That's pretty nice. So, yeah, Zealous Belting is a great red. I had a yellow in here for a while. It's pretty strong into Dromai specifically to hit Mirror Guy. And I cut it. I think I would rather have it back in the deck. It's probably what I would cut one of these Crush Confidence for. I think that extra Zealous. I mean, I won my Dromai matchup, but I think if I had a yellow Zealous, I'd feel a little more comfortable. And then the last card to talk about, I guess, is the Remembrance here. This is basically just for fatigue matchups. I do play it into Dash as well because it lets us have 4 total Smashing Good Times and then take out almost all their items. But that's basically it. You can see most of the matchups here when you look at the guide. So Azalea, I'm playing the Fate and the 2 Unmovables. That's the 3 cards that come in. Briar is the Fate and the 2 Pulverize, like I talked about. Dash is a little different. I think we're taking out the D-Reacts, the Sync Blows, because we are racing. And we take out these Chokeslams as well. We're going the Zealous, Remembrance, and the Smashings as well as the Pulverize because we're on the aggro there. Dory, we go over 60 cards because this matchup can go long. Whenever you're in an over 6, basically whenever you're like, oh, I should play more than 60 cards, that's probably a time when you should be playing Blessing of Deliverance. So those are here. Some extra life is great. The D-Reacts, we've got the Red Unmovables and the Fate for Scenes. Those are great into Dory. Also, in games that go late, Pulverize is great. You can pitch it early, and then when your deck's all blues, you can Arsenal it, and then with 4 blues, you can do 14 Dominate, which should close out most games. It's how I beat one of my Oldhams. We're on like 3rd cycle. I Arsenal the Pulverize, and I know basically my whole deck is blues. Draw 4 blues, and I get to do 14 Dominate, and they were at 3. So that's a way to close out there. We've got the Dromai matchup. This is, okay, I guess I just said over 60, you always play Blessing. You could probably cut down under 60 here, but I'm just literally playing every popper in the deck plus Zealous Belting, which ends up being more than 60 cards. You could maybe cut blues here. You could cut like these 2 Unmovables maybe, but I don't really like cutting blues. If there was a red that wasn't a popper, like you could consider cutting 2 Pummels, but still that feels kind of bad to cut Pummels. So maybe you could trim this down to 60 cards, but I'm just playing all the poppers plus Zealous here. Into Aggro Phi, I'm actually playing the Crush Confidences because his hero ability is pretty good. So those are the 3 cards we have in there. Icelander, we've got the life gain's good into Wizard, and then I've just got a Pulverize here if we're going 2nd cycle or something. Once again, that's fine. Kano, Smashing Good Times and Blessings. We also have the Zealous Beltings because we're trying to race there. Should have the Zealous in, yeah, against Icelander as well. Lexi, this is the Crush Confidence in the Fate for Scene here in. I took out just a blue to be able to fit in that extra card. And then into Oldham, we're playing basically everything except for the Smashing Good Times and the Crush Confidences that are pretty bad in this matchup. So those are the matchups. I'm pretty happy with the results. I had a great weekend. I probably would play the same deck if I had to play Pro Tour again. If I had a lot more time to prepare, I would probably play Lexi. And I think Lexi is the best deck right now. We just got the banned and restricted announcement, and there was no changes in Classic Constructed, which means Lexi is definitely the best deck. Heading into Road to National season, if I was you, I would play Lexi, or just play something that you think will beat Lexi consistently, because that's going to be most of the field. So Azuri is probably a really solid pick right now, and then Dromai is also a pretty solid pick because they both have decent matchups into Lexi. So I would probably play either Lexi or Dromai or Azuri. I think there's some builds of Oldham and Katsu that have found a way to beat Lexi, but I haven't had proof of that yet. So if you have an Oldham or Katsu build that beats Lexi consistently, that sounds pretty solid. But otherwise, I wouldn't worry about that. But thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and I'll see you next time.